This has been fantastic. I'll warn you that I have a train that I'm going to try to catch right after this.
That's
so
good, because you only have until 2:45.
Yeah, so we're going to go pretty quick. But I do want to just take a minute to say thank you for coordinating this. This is so good. I really feel like among friends here, I love all the numbers that are being discussed. It's just been great. Okay, let's see. Okay, so really different kind of angle here. So yeah, I'll be talking about a game called Waddle. If you don't know, Waddle is the English word for a collection of penguins. It also is a verb that I would suggest is something like this. So Waddle is a multi-year project now, funded by the National Science Foundation in the United States. Before I even get into it very much, I'll say there's a bunch of acknowledgments to make that I'm one of the many authors on this paper, and I also mentioned this had a relatively large production team. I'll be talking about Waddle 1.0 mostly in this, but this is part of a larger initiative. So really high level, what am I talking about here? We wanted to build a virtual reality experience that was really good for festivals. We've done a few of these in the past, so the particular kind of usability concerns that are needed when you have basically a long line of kids stacked up and they're excited to do something kind of fun at a science festival, that was our group, this very loud, very energetic museum and festival kind of environment. And the funding behind it really comes back to the fact that most research funders have a real problem with public communication and engagement. National Science Foundation spends something like $1 billion a year on what they call polar research. So this is research that's happening at the North or South Pole, or near it, and no one knows that it's even happening. And it's one of those liabilities that if taxpayers get wind of exactly how much money we're spending, they need to have a brand behind it and say, this is the kind of stuff that's happening, and you love it. So that exists within any funding organization, and that's why we did this project, is to help the National Science Foundation out. From more of a research standpoint, we really wanted to start exploring the educational notion of embodiment as it relates to the computer science notion of embodiment, which are different, and then look at how embodiment from an educational standpoint empirically overlaps with things like interest, science identity, content knowledge, memory. We want to see, do these things intersect in a way that we can measure. And then finally, this whole project was really a pilot. It was an invited project that ended up, and we ended up getting the next one. So a 5-year large-scale project to build 5 of these that would scale out. And now we've made a major shift towards working with libraries, and particularly with Latin multilingual audiences as like an audience. So why penguins? Well, it's because of this lady, Jean Pennycook. She is an incredible human being. So she takes a plane to New Zealand and then a US Air Force plane from there to the McMurdo Research Station in Antarctica, and then gets on a helicopter that flies her to Cape Royds, where she lives in this tent for something like 6 months out of the year, doing effectively ethnographic work with penguins. So she lives alone. She does have a satellite phone, so she communicates and does outreach events with kids who are very excited about the fact that she has to poop inside of a bucket and she lives in this tent. So kids just immediately are attracted to this idea of the South Pole, penguins, Jean Pennycook, poop, it's got all the right. She wrote this book, Waiting for Joey, which is a children's book. It's a young adult book describing her story of a particular penguin that she had tagged and measured the weight of every year. And as it went off to reproduce and come back, how every year she would wait for her one penguin she named Joey to come back. Okay, so this is the context that we're going to try to bring her research to. These are 2 scenes from a recent Wisconsin Science Fest. So you can see there's a huge line of kids, and they wait in line for like an hour sometimes to get to do the VR experience. Also note there's a screen. We've got better at this, but there's usually a screen so that whoever's doing VR is projecting an image that the other kids can see. So by the time they walk up and put the thing on, there's some awareness, they're building some excitement. Okay, so let me show you how the design turned out. We decided we wanted a really playful experience, and we really wanted to lean into embodiment, so you're the penguin, right? And let me just show you a scene out of the game, a couple of them. This is how it begins. There's you move forward by waddling. That's what activates it. The mirror shows up in a lot of VR literature. This character is your guide and shows you where to go. There's a simplified model of Jean's tent in the background. And then we're going to go through 3 different parts of the penguin life cycle. So we'll start with building a nest out of stones. We'll then get to a mating dance. And then we'll defend our egg against the evil skua birds that come. If you don't know this, and hopefully this works well, but penguins are really metal. Like, they do this flipper bashing thing. Well, that's what we call it, flipper bashing. And if you see video of this, it is incredibly violent. So they get into fights where they hit each other really rapidly with their flippers. And this is how they defend themselves against predators as well. They're like ninjas. So let me show you a couple of those scenes. Here's the building a nest out of the stones. When you're in VR, you see your beak in front of you, and you can see your penguin. Yeah, you can't really see the beak in the recording. I'll show you the mating dance real quick. Again, we've got some penguins that are modeling the behavior to the side. And now here, as you synchronize with the other penguins' movements, hearts come up. I think there's some metric here of the number of hearts that need to be. Yeah, now he goes up and just kind of squawks a bit. And then I'll show you the final defending the egg. So these birds called skuas come and they try to steal the eggs. There's not a lot of, food source there. So what you can't see super well is when they get close, you hit them with your flipper. So the whole thing is pretty short, right? It's really designed to be like a 7-minute experience. So let's do all the science in 3 minutes. Okay, so we really want to look into empathy as a construct. And as a learning designer, I do a lot of work around assessment and trying to think about things in a more formal way. But with this, it was really interesting to realize that it doesn't matter if someone knows content about penguins, like who cares? It doesn't lead to any sort of behavior, and really this is an ecology question that we're asking. So we found a bunch of literature that actually shows that this notion of empathy and perspective taking are drastically more related to someone having a change in their behavior, right? And that's what we're really looking for. So this particular piece leading to charitable giving, when I found this, I was really excited. Because instead of just saying, well, I know that the Adelie penguins live at Cape Royds, if we can create empathy, that from the other literature is going to say people can get involved with this in ecologically friendly ways. So instead of content knowledge, we focused on empathy. And then embodiment was an interesting thing to start to come around because, again, I'm like from the learning science background, so I'm thinking embodiment is a fundamental way for human thinking to happen, that brains did not evolve on their own, they evolved in light of a body, and that this is how we make meaning in the world. And we do it through action and perception, right? We look into the world, and because of our bodies, we perceive things a certain way, and because of our bodies, we realize we can interact with the world in certain ways. So we found this notion of direct enacted embodiment, which is one particular way that you can do embodiment within VR. And then also realizing that a lot of people had struggled with creating embodiment with animals. Immersion, easy. You can put on a headset, people feel immersed. But do you feel like you are the penguin? If you read the paper, you'll see we found measures for both of these that were validated and reliable, that had gone through lots of work, and we just used those. So in the end, research questions: does Waddle produce an embodied experience? Did we get there? Did we create embodiment? Did it have any change in empathy? Did we do the thing we wanted? And then are those two related in any way? 20-minute experience, MetaQuest. We had 43 participants. We used pre-post surveys with those instruments, and then did some correlations and t-tests. So short version, did we create embodiment? On our scale of -100 to 100, where 0 would be kind of neutral, we see that our score came up at something like 27. So yes, we created a sense of embodiment. And that we felt really excited about because other scholars have failed in this area. I think it's related to the idea of what they call psychomotor synchronicity, which means your eyeballs are where a penguin's eyeballs would be. Penguins stand upright, so your feet are where your feet are, and your hands are where the flippers would be. And we kind of got lucky that we happened to be modeling a penguin instead of a beaver or a squirrel, or some of the other literature has tried with these things that are on all fours, and they run into problems. We were able to create embodiment. Did it create a change in empathy? And the answer was yes, we did. We were able to increase the score when normalized in a significant amount. So people left with more empathy for the life of a penguin than when they came in. I'm very curious about dispositional empathy and what effect that has on this as well. Were they connected? Maybe. There is a correlation here, but if you kind of know Pearson's, it's not a very strong one. The kind of layperson way to put it is that we can account for something like 7% of the variance with our idea of embodiment, which means there's 93% of the variance that we don't really know where it came from and why they became more empathetic after our experience. So that was the project. We've got a lot of next steps. We have an experiment that's running shortly to find out if this mechanic creates more embodiment than traditional mechanics. Then we're also integrating it with open game data and starting to look at our telemetry data in light of these other experiences. So if you want, right now we are providing data sets for free that give all the telemetry at 90 frames a second, I think. So if you want to run some of this research with us, all of our data sets automatically generate. You'll see a new bar at the end based on our audiences. So feel free to play. It's live on the Oculus Meta store. The source code's available if you want to modify and run your own experiments. I'd love to see someone play with the music, for example. And then all of our data is available for research. So thank you very much.
Do we have a question?
This modeling, is it automatically or I'm doing this myself?
How do you do it? Or how does the algorithm work?
Because I think if I'm not doing it myself,
yeah.
I'll become sick of
Oh, yes, you're the one doing this.
Oh, okay.
That's why the camera is moving like that. The person with the headset has to move their body like a waddle in order for it to move them forward. Yep. Yes.
We had a quick question over there, and then you can take it away.
Thanks.
Hi. So I've done some design thing and found that it kind of happens on an individual basis. So I was really kind of like intrigued by the outliers.
Yeah.
Was there any sort of insight into why there were outliers?
No, I don't, and this is why I want to synchronize it with the game data itself as well. One of the things that we wanted to try to do is detect when someone is going to quit, and we've done that successfully in many of our games. And I'm really hoping with that high frequency data that we get, where we see all those little micro movements, we're going to be able to detect the two audience members we have seen, which are common. You put the headset on and the kid goes, and then you're like, you've got to move. And they're like, right? So we're trying to find that kid who's stiff. The other one we see is the kid that goes like this. And they're just like all over the place and kind of not connecting at all. It's just like a ride that they're on. So those are two use cases that we want to be able to find immediately with just using signal processing.
Thanks, Walt.
Thank you.